Whatever you hear beneath this castle, Emily Carter, you do not open that cage. Alpha King Nathaniel Blackwood's warning followed her long after he disappeared up the stone staircase, leaving Emily alone with the cold air drifting through the lower halls of Blackwood Citadel. She had been inside the king's fortress for less than an hour, yet somehow she had already discovered the one place no servant was supposed to see. The underground corridor stretched nearly 50 feet beneath the eastern tower, lit by small amber lanterns that made the iron doors along the walls look older than the castle itself. At the far end stood the strangest of them all, a massive iron cage hidden beneath a heavy black cloth. Emily tightened her plain gray coat around herself. She was 23, packless, and an Omega whom stronger wolves had spent years teaching to stay quiet. Blackwood Citadel was supposed to be a fresh beginning, nothing more. Work in the healing rooms, follow orders, keep her head down. She could do that. She had survived worse than being invisible. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in courage and destiny, hit like and subscribe. These stories remind us, love finds the broken. Now back to Emily. She climbed 3 steps toward the main corridor when something stopped her. A sound, soft, almost too faint to notice. Emily turned. The covered cage remained motionless. She waited. Nothing. You're imagining things, she whispered. Then it came again. A low, uneven breath from behind the cloth. Emily's fingers went cold. Nathaniel's warning returned immediately. Whatever you hear. So he knew. She should have walked away. Instead, she took one careful step toward the cage. Then another. The air smelled faintly of rain, old stone, and something strangely familiar, like pine trees after the first winter snow. Hello. No answer. Emily moved within 6 feet of the bars. A quiet sound came from inside, not threatening, not angry. Tired. Her Omega instincts stirred with an ache she couldn't explain. Whatever lived beneath that cloth wasn't trying to frighten her. It sounded alone. Emily lifted one hand toward the fabric, but stopped before touching it. Footsteps suddenly echoed above. She spun around. Nathaniel stood at the top of the stairs, broad-shouldered and perfectly still beneath the torchlight, his dark coat carrying the silver crest of the royal pack. His expression revealed nothing, but his pale gray eyes moved from Emily's raised hand to the covered cage. I gave you one command. Emily swallowed. Something is in there. A strange emotion crossed the Alpha King's face and vanished so quickly she almost missed it. Yes. Is it hurt? Nathaniel descended 1 step. Go upstairs, Miss Carter. Another weak breath sounded behind the cloth. Emily looked toward it instinctively. Nathaniel did too. And for the first time, she saw something beneath the legendary Alpha King's cold composure. Not anger. Not fear. Grief. What is inside that cage? Emily whispered. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. Something this kingdom was supposed to forget. Emily held Nathaniel's gaze, but the question seemed to settle between them like something neither of them was ready to touch. Forget? She asked quietly. Nathaniel descended the remaining stairs until only a few feet separated them. Up close, he seemed less like the ruthless ruler described in pack rumors and more like a man carrying a secret that had grown heavier with every passing year. You came here to work in the healing rooms, he said. That is where your responsibility ends. Emily glanced toward the black cloth. And if something down here needs healing? His expression hardened. Especially then. He turned toward the stairs, clearly expecting her to follow. Emily hesitated only a second before obeying. She had learned long ago that survival sometimes meant swallowing questions, even when they burned. The upper halls felt almost impossibly bright after the underground corridor. Morning sunlight poured through tall windows, catching on polished floors and silver banners bearing the Blackwood crest. Servants hurried between rooms preparing for the arrival of visiting pack leaders, and no one seemed aware that something beneath their feet was breathing in darkness. Emily was shown to the eastern healing wing, where shelves of herbs and clean linens covered the walls. Her supervisor, Margaret Hayes, was a practical middle-aged beta with kind eyes and an efficient voice. She explained Emily's duties without asking about her past, which Emily appreciated. But others were less generous. By noon, whispers had already traveled. That is the rejected Omega, one young attendant murmured near the supply cabinet. The one from Cedar Ridge. Another lowered her voice. though not enough. I heard her, wolf barely responds. Emily continued folding towels. She had heard worse. Being underestimated had become so familiar that sometimes it felt like another layer of clothing. Still, every careless word found the old bruises inside her confidence. She reminded herself why she had come. A room of her own. Honest work. A chance to begin again. That should have been enough. Yet throughout the afternoon, her attention kept drifting toward the floor whenever the castle grew quiet. She remembered the uneven breathing. She remembered Nathaniel looking at the cage with grief in his eyes. Most of all, she remembered the strange pull in her chest when she had stood near whatever was hidden there. Near sunset, Emily carried a basket of fresh linens through the western passage and noticed Nathaniel speaking with 3 members of his council beyond an open doorway. She meant to pass without listening. Then she heard one sentence. "It is getting weaker." Emily stopped. An older councilman answered. "Then perhaps that is for the best." Silence followed. Nathaniel's voice came next, low and controlled. "You will not make that decision." Emily moved before anyone could discover her standing there. She walked quickly back toward the healing wing, but the words followed her. "It is getting weaker." That night, long after the castle settled, Emily lay awake in her narrow room beneath a quilt that did nothing to quiet her thoughts. Rain tapped softly against the window. Midnight passed. Then came one distant sound through the stone beneath her bed. A faint, lonely cry. Emily sat upright. Her heart told her to stay where she was. Nathaniel had warned her twice. The council frightened her. The cage frightened her more. But suffering had a sound, and Emily had never been good at pretending she could not hear it. 5 minutes later, she was moving silently through the sleeping citadel with a small lantern in one hand and a bowl of water in the other. She reached the underground stairs and descended until the iron cage appeared at the end of the corridor. "I am not opening anything," she whispered, mostly to herself. The breathing behind the cloth changed. Emily slowly approached and placed the water outside the bars. Then, from beneath the edge of the covering, 2 pale silver eyes opened in the darkness. Emily froze. The creature did not growl. It simply looked at her. And somewhere deep inside her, the wolf that had remained silent for years suddenly whispered one unmistakable word. "Help! Help!" The word was so clear that Emily nearly dropped the lantern. She stared into those silver eyes, waiting for her wolf to speak again, but the presence inside her retreated into silence. For years, Emily had wondered whether that quiet part of herself was broken. Now her pulse raced with the impossible realization that it had simply chosen this moment to wake. She crouched several feet from the cage. "Can you understand me?" The creature blinked slowly. Emily lifted the bowl and pushed it closer to the bars without touching the lock. A pale muzzle appeared beneath the black covering, followed by the outline of an enormous white wolf. Its fur had lost its brightness beneath dust, and several old silver restraints circled its legs. Emily felt no danger from it, only exhaustion. "You are thirsty," she whispered. The wolf lowered its head toward the water, but the chain around its collar stopped it several inches short. Emily's chest tightened. She moved the bowl closer. "Easy." The wolf washed her hand before drinking carefully. Something about its manners unsettled her more than aggression would have. This was not a mindless creature. It understood patience. It understood trust. "Emily." Nathaniel's voice struck the corridor like a closing door. She rose immediately. He stood halfway down the stairs in a dark shirt and trousers, his expression unreadable except for the unmistakable disappointment in his eyes. "I did not open the cage," Emily said. Nathaniel approached, noticed the water, then looked at the wolf. For one brief second, the animal lifted its head toward him. Nathaniel stopped. Emily saw that same grief return. "Go upstairs." "It cannot reach the water without struggling." "I said upstairs. And I heard you." Emily surprised herself with the steadiness of her voice. "But I am a healer. You brought me into this castle to help things that are suffering." Nathaniel's gaze sharpened. "People, Miss Carter. Does suffering matter less when it cannot speak?" The silence that followed felt enormous. Nathaniel looked toward the cage again. The white wolf had withdrawn beneath the cloth, but its silver eyes remained visible. "You think kindness makes every locked door yours to open," he said quietly. "No. I think fear makes people lock doors they should have opened years ago." Nathaniel turned back to her, and Emily immediately wondered whether she had gone too far. Instead of anger, However, something almost wounded crossed his face. You know nothing about this. Then tell me. I cannot. Or you will not. His jaw tightened. Footsteps suddenly sounded from above. Councilman Richard Caldwell appeared at the staircase with 2 royal attendants behind him. His gaze moved from Emily to the bull beside the cage. What is she doing here? Nathaniel stepped between Caldwell and Emily. Leaving. Caldwell frowned. Your Majesty, the council has tolerated this situation long enough. If the creature is weakening, we should proceed before the visiting pack leaders arrive. Emily looked at Nathaniel. Proceed with what? Neither man answered. Caldwell's expression turned colder. This does not concern an Omega servant. Nathaniel's voice changed instantly. You will address members of my household with respect. Caldwell lowered his head, but resentment remained in his eyes. Emily felt something shift in the room. Nathaniel had defended her, yet he was still protecting the secret. He gestured toward the stairs. This time Emily obeyed. As she passed him, his voice dropped so only she could hear. Do not come back here tomorrow night. Emily stopped. Something about the exactness of those words chilled her. Why tomorrow night? Nathaniel did not answer. Behind them, the white wolf released one soft, mournful sound. Caldwell looked toward the covered cage and spoke with terrible calm. Because by sunrise the following morning, there will be nothing left down here for you to save. Emily barely slept. Caldwell's final words followed her through every restless hour, returning whenever the wind pressed against her window. By morning, Blackwood Citadel had transformed for the visiting pack leaders. Silver banners hung from the balconies, servants carried trays through crowded halls, and polished carriages rolled through the front gates. Everyone seemed occupied with ceremony. Everyone except Emily. She spent the morning preparing the healing rooms, but her thoughts remained beneath the eastern tower. By afternoon, she could no longer pretend she had misunderstood. The white wolf was going to die. She found Nathaniel alone near the library just before sunset. Is Caldwell telling the truth? She asked. Nathaniel stopped beside a tall window overlooking miles of dark pine forest. You should be working. Is the wolf going to be killed? His silence answered first. Emily felt her stomach tighten. Why? Because the council believes there is no other choice. What do you believe? Nathaniel looked toward the forest. What I believe stopped mattering a long time ago. Emily stared at him. Those were not the words of a king without power. They were the words of a man trapped by something larger than authority. You are the Alpha King, and even kings inherit promises they cannot break. Then break one. Nathaniel turned sharply. Emily forced herself not to look away. If the promise requires something innocent to suffer, maybe it deserves to be broken. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then Nathaniel stepped closer, lowering his voice. Emily, there are truths inside this castle that could divide every pack under my rule. That cage protects more than the creature inside it. From what? From people who would rather destroy what they fear than understand it. Emily's breath caught. Then why are you letting them decide? Pain flickered across his face again. Before he could answer, bells rang from the great hall, announcing the council gathering. Nathaniel looked toward the sound. Stay in your room tonight. Nathaniel. It was the first time she had used his name. He paused. Please. His eyes softened for half a heartbeat. That is exactly why you must stay away. He left without another word. Emily returned to the healing wing, but shortly after dark Margaret sent her to deliver fresh linens near the council chamber. As Emily approached, voices carried through the partially opened door. Caldwell was speaking. At first light, before the delegates leave. Quietly. No witnesses. Another elder asked, and the king? His Majesty has delayed this for 12 years. He will understand when it is finished. 12 years. Emily stopped breathing. Nathaniel had not ordered the execution. The council was moving around him. Then another voice said, the key will remain in the West Archive until dawn. Emily backed away before anyone noticed her. Her heartbeat thundered as she returned the linens and walked toward her room. She made it halfway there. Then she stopped. Her wolf stirred inside her again, stronger this time. Help! Emily closed her eyes. She could obey. She could protect the small life she had finally begun rebuilding. No one would blame a rejected Omega for choosing safety. But she would know. She turned around. 10 minutes later, she stood inside the dark West Archive, staring at a brass key hanging behind a glass cabinet. This is a terrible idea, she whispered. Her wolf answered with unexpected calm. Yes. Emily almost laughed. Then she took the key. The underground corridor was empty when she arrived. She pulled away the black covering for the first time and finally saw the entire white wolf curled inside the enormous cage. Silver restraints glimmered around its legs and collar, each marked with symbols Emily did not recognize. The wolf raised its head. Those pale eyes found hers immediately. I do not know who you are, Emily whispered, kneeling outside the bars. But I know what it feels like when everyone decides your worth without asking you. She placed the key into the lock. The wolf suddenly stood. Emily froze. Footsteps echoed somewhere far above. Someone was coming. Her hand tightened around the key. Behind the iron bars, the white wolf stepped closer and gently lowered its head toward her. Emily heard her own heartbeat. Then she turned the key. The lock opened with a soft click that seemed impossibly loud in the underground corridor. Emily kept one hand on the iron door, but she did not pull it open yet. The white wolf stood only a few feet away, watching her with those pale silver eyes. If I am wrong about you, she whispered, this is going to be a very short second chance. The wolf lowered its head, almost as if it understood. The footsteps above grew louder. Emily made her decision. She pulled the cage door open. Nothing happened. The wolf did not rush forward. It simply stared at the open doorway as though freedom had become something it no longer remembered how to trust. Emily stepped aside. You can leave. Still nothing. Then she noticed the silver collar around its neck. A short chain connected the collar to an iron ring set into the floor. Opening the cage had never been enough. Emily moved closer. Her instincts warned her about the wolf's size, but another feeling ran deeper than fear. Recognition, not of the creature itself, but of the hesitation in its eyes. She knew what it meant to stand before an open door and still believe you were not allowed to walk through it. I understand, she said softly. The wolf's ears lifted. Emily crouched beside the chain. There was a smaller lock beneath the collar, shaped differently from the cage lock. She tried the brass key. It did not fit. Of course it does not. The footsteps stopped somewhere above them. Emily looked toward the stairs. Silence. She returned her attention to the restraint and noticed a narrow silver clasp beneath the wolf's thick fur. No keyhole, just a circular symbol carved into the metal. When Emily touched it, warmth moved through her palm. Her wolf stirred. The silver symbol gave off a faint glow. Emily pulled her hand away in surprise. The light disappeared. The white wolf stepped closer and gently pressed its forehead against her palm. Warmth surged through her again, stronger this time. The mark on the collar began to shine. Emily heard a sound like ice cracking across a frozen pond. The clasp released. The collar dropped harmlessly onto the stone floor. Emily stared at it. What did I just do? The wolf looked at her as though it had been waiting 12 years for someone to ask that question. Then a bell rang above them. Once, twice, 3 times. The castle alarm. Emily's stomach dropped. We have to go. The wolf stepped through the open cage for the first time. Its legs trembled, and Emily instinctively offered her hand near its shoulder without forcing contact. Slowly, together they moved toward the stairs. Halfway there, torchlight flooded the passage. 4 royal guards appeared above, followed by Caldwell. His face went still when he saw the empty cage. What have you done? Emily moved in front of the wolf. It was scheduled to die at sunrise. You have no idea what you released. Then tell me. Caldwell's gaze shifted past her. Step away from it. Emily remained where she was. No. The single word surprised even her. Caldwell looked toward the guards. Take Miss Carter upstairs. The guards hesitated. None seemed eager to approach the enormous white wolf, yet the creature showed no aggression. It simply stood behind Emily, quiet and watchful. Then another voice came from the staircase. Nobody touches her. Nathaniel descended into the corridor. His eyes found Emily first, then the open cage, then the silver collar lying on the floor. Every trace of color seemed to leave his face. Emily, he said quietly, how did you remove that? I touched it. Nathaniel stared at her hand. That is impossible. Caldwell stepped forward. Your Majesty, we must contain the creature immediately. Nathaniel did not seem to hear him. He was looking at the white wolf now. For 12 long years, Emily realized, he had known exactly who was inside that cage. The wolf took one slow step toward him. Nathaniel's composure finally broke. Ethan, he whispered. The wolf stopped. Emily turned sharply. But before she could ask the question forming in her mind, every bell in Blackwood Citadel began ringing at once. The bells rolled through Blackwood Citadel like thunder, waking every corridor above them. Emily looked from Nathaniel to the White Wolf, but neither moved. Nathaniel had spoken the name Ethan with such disbelief that she knew immediately this was more than a prisoner he had failed to save. "Who is Ethan?" she asked. Nathaniel opened his mouth, but Caldwell answered first. "That is exactly why she should never have been allowed down here." His controlled voice carried a new edge now. "The visiting pack leaders will hear those bells. We have minutes before this becomes impossible to contain." Nathaniel turned toward him. "It became impossible to contain 12 years ago." Caldwell went silent. Emily felt the meaning of those words without understanding the history behind them. The White Wolf stepped closer to Nathaniel. For one suspended moment, the Alpha King looked almost afraid to breathe. Then the wolf lowered its head. Nathaniel slowly raised his hand, stopping inches from its pale fur. "Ethan," he whispered again. The wolf closed its eyes. Nathaniel's hand finally rested against its forehead, and the king's carefully guarded expression gave way to something Emily had never expected to witness. "Relief. Your Majesty," one guard said from the stairs. "People are gathering in the Great Hall." Nathaniel straightened. His authority returned, but grief remained beneath it. "Seal the eastern corridor. Nobody approaches the wolf without my permission." Caldwell stepped forward. "You cannot hide this now." "I am not hiding anything." Nathaniel looked at Emily. "Take her upstairs." Emily stiffened. "I am not leaving him." Nathaniel stared at her. "You opened a royal prison, removed a seal no healer has been able to break, and released something the council has feared for more than a decade. Half this castle will blame you before sunrise. Then tell them the truth." Caldwell gave a humorless laugh. "She still thinks truth is enough." Emily turned toward him. "Usually people only say that when they are afraid of it." Caldwell's face hardened. Before he could respond, the White Wolf moved beside Emily. Not in front of Nathaniel. Beside her. Its shoulder nearly reached her chest, yet its posture remained calm. The guards exchanged uncertain glances. Nathaniel noticed too. "He chose you," he murmured. Emily looked at him. "What does that mean?" "I do not know." A sudden rush of footsteps came from above. A young guard appeared, breathing hard. "Your Majesty, the delegates are demanding an explanation. Council members have already told them a dangerous prisoner escaped." Nathaniel's gaze snapped toward Caldwell. "Already?" Caldwell said nothing. Emily understood. The alarm had not merely warned the castle. Someone had wanted an audience. Nathaniel turned to the guards. "Bring Miss Carter to the Great Hall." Emily's heart sank. "Am I under arrest?" Nathaniel hesitated. "Until I understand what happened tonight. You remain under royal protection." Caldwell corrected him quietly. "Royal custody." Nathaniel's eyes turned cold. "I said protection." Emily started toward the stairs. The White Wolf followed. One guard blocked its path. The wolf stopped without resistance, but Emily felt the strange connection inside her pull tight. Help had become something else now. "Stay?" "He is coming with me," she said. Caldwell shook his head. "Absolutely not." Nathaniel studied the wolf, then Emily. "Let him choose." Emily climbed one step. The wolf followed. Another step. Again, it followed. Nathaniel exhaled slowly. "Then he comes." Minutes later, the great hall doors opened before them. Dozens of pack leaders, nobles, healers, and royal officials turned toward Emily as she entered between the guards. Whispers spread instantly. "Rejected Omega. Servant. Traitor." She heard every word. Caldwell walked ahead and raised his voice. Emily Carter knowingly opened a forbidden royal cage and released the creature imprisoned within. Shock swept through the hall. Emily stood alone beneath hundreds of accusing eyes. Then she heard claws clicking softly against the marble behind her. The entire room fell silent. Emily did not turn around. She only watched the faces before her change from judgment to disbelief as the enormous White Wolf walked into the light behind her. The White Wolf crossed the marble floor with slow, measured steps, and every whisper in the great hall disappeared. Emily could hear nothing but the soft sound of its paws behind her and the uneven rhythm of her own breathing. Several older pack leaders rose from their seats. One woman covered her mouth. A gray-haired alpha near the front stared at the wolf as though he were looking at a ghost. "That cannot be," he whispered. Caldwell immediately stepped forward. Remain calm. The creature has been confined for good reason. The wolf stopped beside Emily. It did not growl or threaten anyone. Instead, it looked across the crowded hall with an intelligence no one could mistake. Nathaniel entered behind them, and the room bowed automatically, but his attention never left the wolf. "Your Majesty," Caldwell said, "Miss Carter knowingly violated a royal command. The council requests that she be formally charged." Emily felt dozens of eyes turn toward her. "I opened the cage," she said before Nathaniel could answer. "But I will not apologize for preventing an execution that was being arranged without the king's approval." A murmur swept through the delegates. Caldwell's expression tightened. "An Omega servant has no authority to question the council." "Perhaps not," Emily replied. "But I still know the difference between mercy and fear." Nathaniel moved to her side. "Enough. No judgment will be made tonight." "Then I request a vote," Caldwell said. "The creature must be confined again, and Miss Carter must answer for releasing it." The white wolf suddenly stepped forward. Several people backed away, but Emily remained still. Something inside her told her not to be afraid. The wolf looked at Nathaniel, then at the gathered pack leaders. A faint silver light appeared along its fur. Emily's breath caught. The same warmth she had felt when touching the collar filled the room, gentle but unmistakable. The wolf's shape began to change beneath the pale glow. No one spoke. Where the enormous animal had stood moments before, a tall man now stood wrapped in the silver ceremonial cloak Nathaniel had ordered brought from the lower chamber. His face was pale from years away from sunlight, his hair almost white, but his eyes were unchanged. Silver. Familiar. Nathaniel stared at him. "Ethan." The man's lips parted as though speaking itself required remembering. "Hello, brother." A collective gasp moved through the hall. The gray-haired alpha near the front dropped to one knee. "Prince Ethan Blackwood." Others followed until nearly half the room was kneeling. Emily looked between the brothers, finally understanding the grief she had seen in Nathaniel's eyes. Ethan Blackwood had not been a monster. He had been family. Nathaniel crossed the distance between them and stopped within arm's reach, visibly struggling to believe what he was seeing. 12 years, he said softly. Ethan nodded. "I know." Nathaniel looked toward Emily. "How?" Ethan followed his gaze. "Her." Caldwell stepped forward quickly. "Your Highness, you are confused. You have been under an unstable enchantment for years." Ethan's expression changed. "I remember everything, Richard." Caldwell stopped. The use of his first name seemed to chill the room. Ethan turned toward the delegates. "I remember the night I disappeared. I remember the seal placed upon me. And I remember who told my brother that keeping me hidden was the only way to protect the kingdom." Emily saw Nathaniel slowly turn toward Caldwell. "What is he saying?" Caldwell remained silent. Ethan took one step toward Emily instead. "For 12 years, healers tried to break the enchantment with power. Every attempt made it stronger. She did something none of them thought mattered." His silver eyes softened. "She showed kindness without asking who I was." Emily felt her wolf stir warmly inside her. Ethan faced the hall again. Emily Carter did not release a monster. He paused, and the silence became absolute. "She released the witness your council spent 12 years trying to keep silent." For several seconds, no one in the great hall moved. Emily watched Caldwell's confidence disappear beneath the weight of Ethan's words, while Nathaniel stood perfectly still beside his brother. "Tell me everything," Nathaniel said. Ethan drew a slow breath. 12 years ago, I discovered that several council members were using an ancient binding seal to control wolves they considered dangerous to their authority. I planned to bring the evidence to you before the Winter Summit." His silver eyes settled on Caldwell. "Richard learned what I knew first." Caldwell shook his head. "This is the confusion of a man recovering from an enchantment." Ethan remained calm. "Then explain why the seal around my neck carried your family mark." A ripple of shocked voices moved through the hall. Nathaniel looked toward the silver collar a guard had brought upstairs. Beneath the royal symbols was a smaller crest Emily had noticed, but never understood. Caldwell's face turned pale. "The seal was necessary." Nathaniel's voice became quiet. "Necessary?" Caldwell looked around the room as if searching for allies. Prince Ethan could no longer control his wolf. The council believed confinement protected the kingdom. "You told me the curse would destroy him if the cage was opened," Nathaniel said. "You told me every healer confirmed it." Ethan stepped closer to his brother. The cage was never protecting me from the kingdom, Nathaniel. It was protecting the council from me. The realization seemed to strike deeper than anger ever could. Emily finally understood why Nathaniel had obeyed rules he clearly hated. For 12 years, he had believed keeping Ethan in prison was the only way to keep his brother alive. Caldwell had built a prison from fear and called it protection. Nathaniel turned toward the royal guards. Councilman Caldwell is relieved of his authority until a full inquiry is completed. Secure every record in the West Archive and summon the independent elders before sunrise. Caldwell stared at him. You would trust her over your own counsel? Nathaniel looked at Emily. I trust what happened tonight. Caldwell was escorted from the hall without further argument, and the tension he left behind felt almost physical. Emily expected relief. Instead, her knees suddenly felt weak. Everything she had done finally caught up with her. She had stolen a royal key, opened a forbidden cage, and somehow broken an enchantment that had survived 12 years. Ethan noticed her uncertainty. You still do not understand what you did, do you? Emily shook her head. I touched the seal. No. Ethan approached slowly. You reached for me without fear. He raised his wrist, where a faint silver symbol was fading from his skin. That enchantment fed on fear, dominance, and resistance. Every powerful healer tried to overpower it. You did the opposite. Emily remembered the wolf lowering its forehead into her palm. I only wanted to help. Exactly. Nathaniel's gaze sharpened as if those words had unlocked another mystery. The old Omega gift. An elderly healer near the front stepped forward. Your Majesty, that bloodline vanished generations ago. What gift? Emily asked. The healer looked at her with wonder. The ability to call a trapped wolf back to itself through empathy rather than command. Emily almost laughed from disbelief. All her life, people had called her weak because her wolf rarely answered. Now the very gentleness they dismissed had broken something strength could not. Ethan smiled faintly. Perhaps your wolf was never weak, Emily. Perhaps she was listening for someone who needed her. Warmth stirred inside Emily again. Then Nathaniel stepped toward her and offered his hand. You came here seeking a place to begin again, he said. Instead, you gave my brother his life back. Emily hesitated before placing her hand in his. The instant their palms touched, silver light appeared beneath her skin. Nathaniel froze. The same light answered beneath his wrist. Around them, every wolf in the hall went silent. Emily's awakened wolf whispered one word, clearer than ever before. Mate, mate. The word moved through Emily with such certainty that for one impossible second, the crowded hall seemed to disappear. Nathaniel was still holding her hand, staring at the silver light beneath their wrists as if the universe had just rewritten everything he believed. Around them, pack leaders began whispering, but Nathaniel released her gently and stepped back. Emily noticed that immediately. He did not claim her. He did not command her. He gave her space. Emily, he said quietly, you do not owe me anything because of that mark. She searched his face. You heard it too? A faint wonder softened his expression. Every part of me heard it. The elderly healer approached, studying the fading silver light. A true mate bond cannot be ordered into existence, Your Majesty. It can only be recognized. Ethan smiled from several feet away. Apparently our family has spent 12 years waiting for Emily Carter to ignore instructions. A few nervous laughs moved through the hall, breaking the tension for the first time that night. Emily looked down at her hand. That morning, she had been the rejected Omega people whispered about beside supply cabinets. Now nobles who had barely noticed her were watching as though she had become someone else. But she had not changed. That mattered. I am still Emily, she said. Nathaniel nodded. That is precisely who I want you to remain. He turned toward the gathered delegates. His voice carried easily through the great hall. Tonight, this woman was accused of disobedience because she chose compassion when those with greater authority chose fear. She will not be punished for exposing our failure. Nathaniel's gaze moved across the council seats. From this moment forward, no wolf in Blackwood territory will be imprisoned, judged, or condemned by secret council decree. Every record connected to Ethan's confinement will be opened for independent review. The room became solemn. Emily felt Ethan step beside her. You gave me back 12 years I thought were gone forever, he said. I cannot return what this kingdom took from you, but I can make sure they know what you gave me. Emily swallowed against the sudden emotion in her throat. You do not owe me either. Ethan smiled. Then perhaps we can simply call it friendship. Dawn began to color the high windows with pale gold. Only hours had passed since Emily entered the underground corridor carrying a bowl of water, yet the castle already felt different. Nathaniel approached her once more, this time carrying the brass key she had stolen from the West Archive. He placed it carefully in her palm. I warned you not to open that cage because I was afraid of what would happen if the council had been right. Emily closed her fingers around the key. And were they? Nathaniel looked toward Ethan, standing freely beneath the morning light. No. His voice softened. I was afraid of losing my brother, so I accepted a prison disguised as protection. He looked back at her. You saw suffering and asked a simpler question. Does he deserve help? Emily remembered the lonely silver eyes beneath the black cloth. He did. So did you. She went still. Nathaniel lowered himself to one knee before her. Gasps moved through the hall, but Emily barely heard them. The most powerful alpha in the Northern Territories was not demanding submission. He was offering respect. They called your gentleness weakness, he said. They were wrong. Emily's wolf stirred warmly. Nathaniel rose and offered his hand, leaving the choice entirely hers. She looked at Ethan, at the open doors beyond the hall, then at the man destiny had placed before her. Slowly, Emily took his hand. The silver marks returned, brighter in the dawn. No one laughed at the rejected Omega now. No one ordered her to disappear. And as Emily walked beside Nathaniel toward the morning light, she finally understood what her silent wolf had been trying to teach her all along. True strength had never needed to be cruel. Sometimes, it was simply the courage to open a door everyone else was too afraid to touch.